Alright, welcome back students, and let's quickly start with Django. And let me answer a few of the questions that you guys were not able to answer. I don't know what happened to you guys yesterday. Why weren't you able to answer and submit all the files successfully? So I don't know what was your problem, right? So I'll try and correct this problem of yours. Alright, so let's go and see all the questions first and try and get all the answers. So there were 3 questions that you faced maybe problems answering them, right? So question number 1 was just a moment. So question number 1 was the concept of using Django master page in the derived page is based on. Now you can say extending from the master page block. Yes, we always extend it from the master page block. So that's not a problem. So everyone answered that actually. So the second problem that they faced was the keyword include is used for. Alright, it does not include. Include can be used to call the contents of the called page inside the calling page. So now for example, if we have contents here, page 1, right, and we have the let's say we have the contents of page 1 and we have the contents of page 2, right? So this is page 1 and this is page 2. So this is called as calling page, right? And let's say this is called as called page. So this is calling page and this is called page. All right. All right. So now what are the contents of called page? For example, if we can say we will write here h1 and we will close the h1 tag here and I will write the hello tag. And now if I say include, all right, page 2. So now what am I doing here? I am actually including the contents, which is hello, right? That means it is actually including the contents of the called page. Your calling include is the calling page. जहाँ से आप include को call करें, where you're calling include from, right? You're calling include from here. That means you're calling the called page. Alright, so this is the called page, and what it does is it will include the contents of the page inside the calling page. Alright, that means hello is going to be now displayed inside page 1. Alright, so this is how include is going to work, right? It doesn't matter whatever the code is, whatever the contents are, the contents of the called page will be included. Alright, the contents of the called page will be included inside the calling page. So option number 1 was the correct answer. And the third question that you faced problem, who does the web server render Django master page and derived? Well, it renders it as a single page sent to the browser. Now you can clearly see it renders it as single page sent to the browser. That means whatever blocks you are using, right? For example, we have a master page and then we have a derived page, right? But it is sent as a single page to the browser. But if you see this, both pages are joined and sent as a single page. Yes, that is actually right. This means the same. It renders it as a single page sent to the browser. Both pages, which is the master page and the derived page, they are joined and sent as a single page to the browser. That's not a problem. Then option number 1 is correct. Option number 2 is also correct. Browser receives. If you are sending, the browser receives them as a single page. So option number 3 is also good. Browser receives the response as a single HTML page. Yes, if you're sending it as a single HTML page, browser also receives it as a single HTML page. So the answer was all of the above. Alright, so now second last question was the request object taken as an argument by the view function contains. Now what does the request object contain? It contains HTTP header. One of the best examples, when you call get, it takes it from the header. When you call post, it takes it from the body. Alright, and now does it type the request type? Whether the get request type means which type of request has the client made, get, put, delete, write, post, right? And the answer again is all of the above, right? 1, 2 and 3. So it's very easy. So there was nothing more we can say complicated, right? I don't know what made it complicated for you guys, but nevertheless, so we are going to now complete this design right here. Okay, so now I suppose you have understood each and everything, right? So let's understand, class-based views. So we'll understand today. The topic is class-based views. If we know that views, we are only using functions, and in views we're not using classes, right? So if I show you, let me carry on. Okay, let's go to the view VS Code, and if I go and show you the views.py, which belongs to the app travel app, if I show you this particular thing, you can see defining a function without even having any class right here. All right, so that is what I was talking of. Now, what are the class-based views? Right, and what do they provide? Please take a note when I say class-based views provide an alternative way to implement views as Python object instead of function. That means now, right, you are implementing views as an object of Python. You understood, object-oriented programming, right? And now we will be implementing Python objects instead of Python functions. Now, what does class contain? Class contains functions, but we access it with the object name, right? And they do not replace function-based views, but there are some certain differences and advantages when we compare function-based views to the class-based views. Organization of code related to specific HTTP methods, right? We can organize it. On get, I need a certain function to run. On post, I need a certain function to run. That can also be addressed by separate methods instead of conditional branching. So these are known as conditional branchings that I want. If I go to urls.py, now you can see that I have certain things that run on post, and there are certain things that may run on get as well, right? Now let me show you it in a very different kind of app today. All right, so let me try and convert these to the class-based view. So I'll delete every single thing, or I'll just not delete but copy them to the clipboard so that we can use them later. All right, and let's call them as for example, let's call a single view here. Let me call a single view. Login is already there. Yeah, I'll just keep login here and I'll delete every single thing, right? So we have this login view here. Now we can clearly see whenever, let's say I will return to the login page. So let's return something to the login page so that, okay, I can say return this, and I can return a key and a value pair right here. So I can say message is equal to get called. All right, so now we're only rendering login here. So if I go to login, right, I get these errors, so I know that I'll be able to get them because let me delete these content pages. If I go to urls.py, so in everything except login is defined pretty well. So only one thing that is defined here is login, because we deleted everything in views. Now we have only one function, views.login, and that's what we are calling views.login. Now you can see hello from the login page. And now if I go to the login page, which is already extending from the master page right here, so I'll say hello from the login page. Right, and I can access a variable. You already know, already accessed many variables also. If you don't know them, right? So we access not only variables, we accessed many things in the past as well as basically a parameter, right? We passed parameters, right? Just like we are passing a message here, right? And how do you display this message in the derived page? So I can display the message just by calling the dictionary like this. So we'll have message. I suppose this is the same message that we're passing from the views. Yeah, it's message message. So I'll take the same message and display it in the login page. So if I go and display, now you can see get called. Okay, let me have a break line here. Let me hit br. So now you can see that this function runs on get. So we are getting this get called All right, you can even just keep this entire thing in the bold tags so that we get to know what is happening. Now, what are you getting? Get call. So we know that whenever we load the web application, actually what happens, the get is called. All right, so for example, if I have a form here, so I'll say form action, right, and I'll keep the action as self action. So, and I'll say method post. Now I'm calling post here, right? When do you call this? Whenever you click on input type submit, right? Let's say value submit, all right? And whenever you click on input type submit, so get is not going to be called, it is post that's going to be called. Now you can say 403 forbidden CRF verification actually has failed. And how do you make sure, or how do you ensure CRF validity or CRF verification taking place? I told you about CRF tokens, right? That is cross-site request forgery. How do you save it? How do you avoid it? Just by passing a CRF as token. So I will use the same. I'll say CSRF, that's cross-site. C means cross, S means site, R means request, right? And I'll have to actually use scriptlets here. So let me use them. Okay, CS cross-site request forgery underscore token. So now if I pass this CRF as token, that means I am the genuine one. Now we're still getting get called. So that is the problem what is happening. Now what if you want to call two different things? That means you'll have to distinguish between the URL. I can say /login/post. Now because you want to execute two different functions here, right? Now you can clearly see when I click on submit, I actually go to /login/post, which actually is not defined URL here. So now I'll have to define it, right? So now I'm showing you the difference between using a class-based views and without class. So I can say login / what do we have it? Post, right? So I can say when you go to login/post, you need to actually fire a function. You actually need to fire a function. We call this as login post. Now what has happened is it has forced us creating two different functions here, right? I can say here post called, right? So login post. So now I'll go to the views. It's going to be a bit hectic this way, but yeah, still we'll have to do this. So I'll say views dot login post, right? So I'll say login post, and now say post called. So now when I load the website for the first time, I get called. When I click on the submit method, I get post called. But this is what we are doing with the help of, again, get parameter, which is /post. Now you can say post called. Now what if I try to convert the same? I'll just have only one URL to just judge whether the request coming is get or the request coming is post. Okay. All right. All right then. So now what are we trying to do here? All right. So we have views-login, and we are getting now nothing because we cannot now run it on post. We can only run it on get. We know that when you click on submit button, you go to post. Post is not defined. So we'll have to get rid of every single thing that's being defined right here. All right, so now let's go ahead and say submit. Oh, just a moment. Now what is happening here is I'm submitting this form when I have not written any action. The form is going to be submitted to the self page within the same page login.html. So this login.html is taking this form actually now because there's no action, right? And what happens when you go to login.html, you'll always get called, but because you are calling only one function, which is views.login. Now will you be able to differentiate it in views.login? Since you have two functions, one works on get, another on post. But in this case, you'll say no. Alright, so there's maybe we can take whether the request method is post or not. We can do this as well. I can go and take use of if. I can say if request dot write method. Alright, I can say if request dot method is equivalent to post. Right, and then what you do is you do this. I'll just close it down. You'll say, let's define a message here. So I can say message is equivalent to empty, and now if it is post, I'll say message will take right post is called right, and I'll say else, right, close down else. I'll say message will take get is called. So there are two HTTP verbs actually that we have to and we are actually working on. And now instead of this message get called, I will use the variable message. Now let us see what happens. When you load the website for the first time, HTTP get is called, we get is called. When you click on this method, we're getting post is called. So now we're able to be close. Alright, we're able to distinguish when is post called and when is get called. Right now, when you load the application, get is called. When you click on submit, post is called. So now what you are able to do by this way, you are able to differentiate when is the post request coming and when is get request coming. If the post request is coming, you have certain criteria that you want to load and you want to do and this and that. Right, and if it is not right, so then there are certain things, right? So for example, if you are having HTTP method post is called, you can return HTTP, let's say about you can render a response or you can redirect the user to some other page. So that's also possible. But let's see, what if we do not have this now, right? What if we have a class? So I can say it is class, let's say my view, whatever you call this as, I don't know. So I call this class as view, right, and my view, right, and it inherits from view, right? So this inheritance, so I have already shown you, it is actually capital view. It is going to throw an error right here because we have not imported, right, because we have to import from django.views, from django.views, I have to import view. Right, so now that we have imported view, we are able to use the same view right here. So this class is inheriting from the view, which is the main view class, right? And we don't have to do anything right here now, actually, right? And let's say we define, I will define a function. I call this get, right? And the get takes self. I don't have to tell you why are we taking self, because those who know Python may know this. And I'll say request. I'll have to make an object of request, maybe. It was there. For example, it takes request request, and this is the view. Okay, and it takes for example args. Those who know args and kwargs, these are keyworded arguments and maybe some non-keyworded arguments, right? So the kwar and gs, for example, right? So it's going to take this, all right? So I will say I'll use the same right here, right? I will use the same here. I'll say return render, right, this method, which is a request actually, and go to login and pass the message. So message is not defined here, so I'll say get is called. So this is the message that I'm defining here, get is called. So now I'll define another method here. I'll say post, and I will say post is called. Alright, so there are two different things right here that takes the request and that takes every single thing. All right, so and then we're passing the message. Get is called on get and post is called on post. Now, how do you render the same thing? Now, how do you actually work with this, right? How is the rendering done here, right? So, if you want to see that how is this particular thing being called from, let's say about the class. Okay. And how do you call it from the class now? So we have the class name now, my view, and I'll go to urls.py. I will say instead of views, I'll say my view, right? And what do you want? So I'll say my view. But what actually do you want in your view? What time is it? So, all right, just we have some good amount of time now. So what are we going to do here? Now we don't have views.login. Now first of all, understand there's a bit of change that has happened. Now my view is actually a class and the class name is my view. Now if you know the Python rulings that you may not be able to access the class directly without importing the class, and you want get and post to be called based on the behavior. Now what do you do here? So I'll go and I'll say first of all I need to import, right, because we're not now using views only, we are using a class. So I will say from, what is the app name? Travel app. So I will say from travel, so from travel app.views. So this is the file name, travel app.views. Now you can see this views in travel app, right? So that's what I'm using in URLs. From travel app.views, I will say import. What is the class name? My view. So I'm importing this class here, just like we used to import in normal Python. So I say from travel app.views, import the class my view, right? And now let us see the magic. The magic is played here, that if you want to take all the views as views. So I'll say whenever someone types login, you go and access my view and access it as view, right? As view, it's actually a function. You can clearly see that we are calling, right? Right, and this is going to be accessed my view as view. What do you want and what do you mean by accessing my view as view? Right? What are you trying to say? That if get is called, call the get. If post is called, call the post function. So we're not predefining anything right here. Right? If I go to this urls.py, we're saying my view, which is the class name, and as view. Now what do you mean by as view? We don't have any function as view. You say if get is called, it takes one parameter, sorry, it does not take any, it extends from view, and this get takes some parameters, right, which is the request object, and you can pass arguments and keyworded arguments to this function, and we'll utilize them as well. But what I say, what I mean when I say my view, which is the class name my view, and as view, and I'll say my view as view means whenever you submit right to this URL, I'm submitting this form to this URL, right? If the method is post, go and call the function post, and if it is get, go and call the function get. Let's see now it's if this is actually happening or not. When you load the website for the first time, you can clearly see get is called. Now, how is this get called? Right? You're not calling any function right here. Right? You're not actually calling any function. But since we know that the function method is get as view, you're taking it as view. Whatever comes from the view, right? You're taking message get is called. So displaying this message get is called. Now let's hit post. I can see that we're getting post is called. Now this is the magic of we can say class-based views that we are actually going to use. All right, isn't it real? Isn't it good? Now let's say, for example, on get you require a particular thing to happen, and on post you require a particular thing to happen. Let me go to login here and let me have this. And you have to understand that we are submitting the form. Whatever is in this form will be submitted back to the function, will be submitted back to login.html. Now what is login.html mapped with? Login.html is mapped with /login, right, isn't it? Yes, you can clearly see the URL pattern login. You're going to my view as view. You're entering the same page, login.html, you're entering the same page, login.html here as well. Now, for example, if we have a particular form, so after the CRSolve token, let me create a table and let me close down this table. I will say cell spacing. Let me give some space between cells, that is external. Cell spacing means outside space of cells. Cell padding means internal space of cells. Now, as you know, a table has a table row, and what does it have? A row has a table cell or a table division. So I'll just make it. All right, and here is something that I will use to display my message. I don't want to display when is the get called and when is post called. So I'll display my message right here. All right, and I will say login panel, and I'll go with another TD right here. And inside this TD, I'll display the message. Let's go with inline styling color red. I'll go with the red color. And this is login panel. And let me take them to H3 tags. Let's see how does it look like now. So this everything happening on get now, login panel. I can say I don't require this hello from the login page. So this also not required. So we have this login page and I'm getting get is called. So what I'll do my job right here. So whenever you load website for the first time, don't display anything. I don't want to display anything. Why should I display anything? I will not display anything at all. So I can clearly see login panel. So that's sufficient for me. I'm not displaying any message on get, and I have to design the login page. Right now I will go with TR and I'll say TD and I'll say enter your Y-O-U-R-F-I-S-T. I'll say enter your first name. I'll carry on. I'll say TD input type text, and I'll give it a name for variable calling txt username, and I'll close it down. All right, so let me copy and paste it here. Enter your last name, and I will say txt last name. Right, enter your first name, enter your last name. So everything is working fine, and I'll go on. I'll say another table row, table division. Don't write anything because you require a submit button. So I'll make it here. I will say input type is equal to submit, and value is equal to login. So this is what the value is going to be right here, and this is why I have kept empty, because I require my login button to come here. Nothing will come here. So this is something like my login screen or something like that. You can tell table, you can yet say, hey table, align yourself to the center. Align yourself to the center, so it will be aligned to the center. So this is my login, and now you can say post is called. I don't want this here, right? So whenever I hit post, now on get, I had to do whatever I have to do. Whenever we call get, when is get called? When you load the web application for the first time, automatically this is called, and I want to return the same page right here. I don't want to return some other page right here, because as you know, right? And I'll also show you what this KW args and this args actually does, right? So now if I say, let's say about message, so I'll say MESSA, message is equal to ARGS, right? So let's say message is equal to arguments, and I can say ARGS right here, and let's see what args display when you call post. Right, you're not getting anything because you know that AWRGS will convert it to okay, it is going to convert you to tuple, right? So you know that is going to convert everything to tuple, this args, but let's see what is in the args. If I say Fahim and I say password, so now what does it go? No, nothing at all. So not having anything. So let's go and display KWARGS. We know that KWARGS is going to convert everything that you write to what? Right? So just a moment. Key and a value pair is going to convert it to dictionary. So this is KWARGS here. So we have nothing in KWARGS. Let me display a dictionary now. Okay, let's carry on. Fahim and password. So now you can see you have nothing at all. It depends where you're. Okay, sorry, I'm going to display a message here. Am I displaying something else? Sorry. It's going to convert it to dictionary. We know that now we have a blank and empty dictionary, and our pass two values. It contains nothing. Now, if I display the request object here, right, REQE, what does the request line contain? Right, so let's display. Request line contains many different things. Number one, where the request is coming from, the method, whether the method is get. I can say request.method, right. Alright, so I can display request.method. So let's see what method is called. It post. When you hold, I can see post, right? Request.method and request.IP address, many different things, right? So we don't want to go too deep into it. Now I'll say I want to display the post data. Alright, I want to display the post data in here. Right, and that post data is actually going to be taken from the user as an input. For example, request.post, we're talking of request.post to be more precise. I can say, alright, I will say you as a username is equal to req, you request.post because you're submitting it as post. I'll say request.post, post is actually capital, and it's submitted as an associated array. I will say txt username. So whatever username enters, it goes to this u, and whatever username enters as txt password inside the txt password field. Okay, so now we will go and see what is this and what is this happening here. Now you can see we have login.html. So what is this txt last name? We have txt password. Now we have two input types, txt username, the variable name here, txt password, the variable name here, and input type password. I'll just change it to input type password. Now you're calling txt username and txt password, which your form is going to take via method post. Post takes data in the body, right, and get takes data in the head section. So you're posting the data back to login page because the action itself means you're submitting it back to the login page. And where are you handling it? You're handling it in the URL. If the post request comes, where you're taking this txt username data and this txt password, right, and you're storing it in a variable u and you're storing it in a variable p right here. So now let me say I want to display u plus p, right? So let me go and message back u plus p. Okay, username Fahim. Let's say my password is pass, and now we're getting Fahim pass. Fahim is the username that you are typing, and pass is actually the password that you are typing, right? So now I can just do some R&D here. Let me just do some R&D here. I know I don't hard code it. We have to apply complete object oriented methodology, right? We have to create models. We have to create views, right? We have to create controllers, right? So business logic, we have to separately segregate the business logic. So that is maybe in one or two classes, but I can say here if u is equivalent to blank, and I will use and, right, and I'll say if p is equivalent to blank, just show me a message, right? I will say now I'll declare and define a message variable. So I'll say message variable is equal to nothing, and if it happens message is equivalent to please write a username and a password. Please write a username and please write a password, and else if nothing happens, right, or if it's empty, I will say if it is not empty. Let me say if it is not empty, then do this. If it is empty, do this, right? Filhal ke liye we will say pass. If it's empty, I don't want to do anything here. Alright, so it's plain Python logic. If it is empty here, if it is not empty, right, if it is not empty, you pass. If it is empty, you're saying message is equal to this. I will just pass the message here. Right, let me pass the message here. Click login. Please write a username and a password. Right, so we're getting this message that please write a username and a password, and get does nothing, gets called, and you're just rendering the same thing without message having any different thing right here. But yeah, if they match, I run another if here. I will say if u is equal to NIIT, hard coding it, and p is equal to password. We know that we have to get connected to database actually in here, but yeah, still I'll say message is equivalent to, if it is equivalent to, right? If I'll say just message is equal to logged in successfully, right? And if it is actually not, so I can go ahead and say else message इजी मेरा है message is equivalent to logged in successfully if it's equivalent, and if it's not equivalent to, you can say incorrect username and password. So you can display these messages. What if you want to get redirected? I know that after successful login you get redirected to a particular profile. Right, I'll say username and password incorrect. Oh, spelling mistake, incorrect. So I'll say incorrect. So I'll get it. Please type a username and a password, and I write something random, incorrect username and password. If I enter NIT and password is password, what is password? Yeah, password is password. If I write down NIT and I write down password, so I should be getting logged in successfully. Now, if you want to get redirected, if you want to redirect user to some other view, because after login you don't display the message that you have been logged in, you actually redirect user to some different view. And for that, what are you going to do? You can even say that I want to return back to the function something, right? I want to return back to the function, let's say about login as an HTTP response, or I want to redirect, right? So you can use a redirect right here. And there are shortcuts available. So from django.shortcuts, import render, and I will import redirect as well. So I'll say, okay, now if everything is fine, I don't want any message, I want to return back to the function, right? Redirect me back to, let's say about slash profile, right? I want to redirect user to the profile. Let's see now. Okay, please write a username and a password. Incorrect username and a password. Now if I write correct, I will be redirected right here. Now you can see profile is actually not found, but that doesn't mean you're not redirected, you're actually redirected. If you want to define profile, do I have a profile page? No, I'll create a new file and I call this as profile.html. So now we have profile.html, which of course is going to extend from the same master page. So I'll extend it from the same master page and I'll say hello from the profile page. Okay, is that so? Now let's try again. Please write a username and a password. When I write wrong, so we get incorrect username and password. And if I write correct, I'll say NIT and I'll get password. So I'll get password. If I write everything fine, so I'll be redirected to profile. We know that we have not defined profile yet in the urls.py. So first things first, that we have to define this right here. Right, so I'll say if anyone who types profile, wait a second, I'm getting a call. Wait a second. All right, so I had a long, call. So I resume after a short break. So let's continue where we left from. All right, we're talking of views now. Now we have to understand, this as view function. Now, if I say that, now you clearly see. Now, if the username and password, if they match, right, you are redirected to profile/profile, right? So number one thing. Now, do you have any function with the name profile in the views? Now you can clearly go and see, yes, we made a function known as profile, right? And this is currently going to refer us to the views, right? And it's going to redirect, all right? So it's a rendering basically profile.html. So whenever you file this profile, it is going to render and give us back profile.html. So now if I refresh, I'll be in the same page. I'll not go anywhere but be in the same page. So incorrect username and password, and I type password, and now you can clearly see the URL pattern has changed, right? And now you have to understand it, right? The URL pattern that we are in is slash profile. And what is happening when you type slash profile? Now let's go ahead to the urls.py. Whenever you type slash profile, you are going to take my view as view. All right, so are we firing get or are we firing post? Now, even if I take this function away from the profile, so this is not going to have any impact, right? So now we can see this. And I mean, now by this way, we are actually using get. Right, we're not calling any different function, but what we are doing is we're using the get function, right? So now there are only two ways that you have defined in view. You're going to get this view as view, either get or post. दोनों में से एक ही चीज at the same time आपकी चलने वाली है, या तो get चलेगा या तो हमारा post चलेगा. दोनों की दोनों चीजें भी चल सकती हैं, but for that we have to understand few more things regarding this profile. Right, how are we going to actually deal with class-based annotations if we are not using as view function? What if we are using as view function? Right, so many different things that you are going to deal with, but you know, it is Django. Just a moment. This. Alright, after facing a lot of disturbances today, let's quickly get redirected now because I'm facing a lot of disturbances today. What we have to do now, we have to get redirected. So let's see what are we going to use here. So let me just define a path right here. Whenever you type profile, so you will be redirected to, I'll go to my views, I'll just take everything away here. Right, because it is profile, so I will only take one parameter, and that is the request object as an argument, and I'll be redirecting to profile.html, and the message that I'll be telling is hello from the or we can say hello from profile, because we have to get only redirected, so in that case we're not having anything else. Alright, so this is what we want here. One brace, and only one brace will close. So why are we closing down too many braces? So we're returning the render whenever you call profile. So now how do you call profile? I will go in urls.py. So I'll call profile as my view dot profile, right? And that's all what you have to do. Call my view dot profile as a view, right? So now let's see. I'll go to login. I go to login. Please write a username and a password. So I'll write username and a password, incorrect username and a password. Now in that case, now if I write the correct username and password, I should be redirected to the profile page. Now you can clearly see that I am redirected to the profile page right here. Right, it is question number 2. Right, it's another question that if you want without login, that you want to protect the profile page, so that's something else that we have to do. We'll be learning in the concurrent classes, but what we have learned today is the following. Number 1, we created a form. We know that why do you pass CSRF token. In case you've jumped into this class directly, I reckon you go back and check 3rd or 4th class wherein I have shown you the requirement and the necessity of using a CSRF token to stop cross-site request 4G, to make sure that the request is coming from the same page. And now the second thing that we learned today is that how do we use class-based views, right? So using class-based views will always inherit from view, right? The normal view that we were using a couple of days back, or maybe in the previous class. And now we know that there are the kind of request that we are having is get is an HTTP request or HTTP verb of request. So HTTP post is there, HTTP get is there, right? And then post is there, put is there, delete is there, update. So these are HTTP right request. These are all HTTP request methods, right? So now in that case, if you are defining a HTTP request method, so it is going to be called automatically, right? And you have to make sure that you are accepting the first argument as self, and then request, of course, we always accept the request object. In case even if we are using function based views, not class based views, we still accept request. And ARGS and KWARGS. Now why are we accepting ARGS and why is the necessity of this KWARGS here? So that remains the question. Right? So why are we accepting args and KW args here? So many of you may have this question. We call this as dynamic filtering, right? We call this as dynamic filtering. Now, what do you mean by dynamic filtering? The need is to filter down the objects given in a list page by some key in the URL. We know that, right? And what we are doing in class-based views, various useful things are stored on self. Now we know that object self we already learned in Python, right? And there are maximum 90% things they come from the request object, right? And this includes the positional, right? We can say self.args, you can pass, and it can use self.kwargs, right? Arguments according to the URL config. Now you can pass number of arguments, right? If you want to pass, let's say about, I don't know, the number of arguments you want to pass in the URL. For example, if I say KWARGS needs to be displayed, and now I go back to the login screen, and now I say display KWARGS, but I do not have anything like KWARGS, so I can say ARGS is equivalent to 1, 2, 3. Now, what do you expect? You expect these arguments to be captured. In that case, if you are filing, right, if you're passing any kind of argument in the URL before the slash, right, you want these arguments to be captured, right, and you want these arguments to be shown here as well, right? So, for example, we have, I type user name, let's say about is equivalent to Fahim. So username is the question and the answer is Fahim. Now what do you want out of the KW args? So I'll call self.kw args, and I am looking for something known as username. Now if you see that you're passing this kind of a username, you're already passing it in the URL. We still have an error. Username right is here, so I can just deal with this right here. So it is get. Now we know that we're calling this one get, and as an argument, so we can say username is equal to Fahim. So we have a key error right here, so I'll say user name. So let me refresh this again. Still has some key error. Username is equal to Fahim. Exceptional value USERNAME. So just let me start the server back and let me call this self.kwargs. So I'll call kwargs and I'll give it to the message because we're accepting it as kwargs. Meanwhile, it's not coming, but this remains the topic tomorrow. So I'll check for why isn't this coming. All right. So we'll define these arguments and KW arguments in the next class. Next class is completely dependent on that. You can see we're still getting a warning that you need to pass self here, but it's absolutely all right in order to get the idea of how do we actually work with class-based views, right? And what is my view doing? So it's going to be more theoretical, or we can say more theoretical definition tomorrow that will be coming up for you guys, right? So these are basically just the start that we are looking for. Tomorrow we will explain it. I don't have time to explain. We've already consumed 48 minutes, so theoretical will be explained. I'll show you again using the same kind of a thing in a very different manner. It's not necessary that we always return, right, redirect. We have many things that we can return. We can return a model, we can return different things, but as long as the simplicity of this program is concerned, so let's not pass any get argument, right? As long as the simplicity of the program is concerned, right, you can see that we are able to develop a nice login screen, and that too with redirect and using class-based. You can see now hello from the profile page. Now, if you want to define anything else in the profile page, you can get the same message. Alright, so you want to get it from the message parameter, you can directly get it from the message parameter. Right now, so you're getting hello from profile, and where is this hello from profile coming from? If you go to views.py, this comes from here, hello from profile. I'll change it to hello from me and I'll just use it. Now I'm getting hello from me. So these were the class-based annotations. We will understand the theoretical and we will understand the more complex part of class-based annotations tomorrow. But yeah, I will recommend you using class-based annotations to execute only two methods. We know that the request that is coming to my view is either the get request or the post request. And if you want to execute it as per the URL that you are receiving it, execute it as view, right? So you have to use this as view function. Right, when you call this as view function, it calls the desired method, whether it's get or post, as per the request coming from the browser, right? So practice this. Inshallah, tomorrow we will try and clear more confusions, and we'll try and we can say we'll try and clear theoretically as well. Bye bye. Take care. See you tomorrow.